live on Facebook and all right, there we go. We are live now on Facebook and YouTube. Had to do a little technical things taken care of. So welcome to the live broadcast of Where Is Your Mind? Got a towel here to see you go. So no AC, got the fan on, so you know summer days here in Washington D.C. can be quite the thing to deal with. Good thing we keep our water handy to stay hydrated. We may wait a couple more minutes just to see if we want to jump on live. Otherwise, we'll get started in a couple of minutes here. All right, it's up in the wholeness. Greetings and salutations. 806, let us begin this wonderful session on Where Is Your Mind? Just had to make sure that we have a sign on the door that we are in class right now so there's no interruptions. And with that, let us begin. All right, so first off, most of us are familiar with the various systems of the body that have been identified in Western medicine, such as the nervous system, immune system, skeletal system, digestive system, etc. And within these systems that have been identified, you will find organs and glands from the heart, brain, pineal, thyroid, etc. And again, most of us are familiar with this from either a health class, some point in school, or TV, Grey's Anatomy, word of mouth is talking. Most of these things are pretty familiar to us, generally speaking. So, and one thing that is not generally mentioned, however, within any system of the body in the Western medical system is that organ we call the mind. And the main reason for this probably is that our mind is considered a metaphysical thing as opposed to a physical thing. And the prefix meta generally means above or beyond, above and beyond the physical, those things that can be perceived with our senses and organs. So, how does this metaphysical thing called the mind work in relationship to our physical bodies? Well, it would help if we realize also that not only is life / creation more non-physical than physical, so are we as human beings. And of course, a good analogy of this non-physical, more aspect of life would be those who are spiritual and or religious, and or those who believe in what commonly called the higher power, whether it be God, Mother, Father, God, Source Energy, Jehovah, Allah, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna. Certain individuals have been, put at that status of a god or, some type of spiritual entity that, influences or have influence over, us humans. So again, that's metaphysics all day. God, spirituality, religion, metaphysics all day. All right. And as far as our body goes, our one body may be looked at as 4 bodies in one, meaning you're looking at a physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual body, in which our emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies, which are metaphysical in nature, generally activates and animates our physical body. And again, most of us are familiar with this from a perspective of how we feel. Well, from one perspective, how we feel about what we think, based on our spiritual awareness and understanding, will manifest in our physical body, which will be experienced as pain or pleasure, and will ultimately lead to death or optimal health, immortality. So again, just in a nutshell, what my person is alluding to, sharing, speaking on, is that again, most of life is metaphysical in nature. Even if we just recall again from Western science that there's suggestion that everything is energy, everything in creation is energy, or everything is light, synonymous light and energy, including the physical body, the table, the video, the computer, all these things which are physical. Science says it still is energy, just in a dense form, which we call physical. And as we walk around and engage with these things on this dimension that we call physical, right? Based upon, again, how we feel about what we think. We have these thoughts and we feel a certain way about these thoughts, which can change. So they're not etched in stone. And they're changed based upon, again, our spiritual awareness and understanding. And called, when you know better, you do better. Something like that. So again, As we grow, mature spiritually, awareness, things like this, we begin to, again, naturally shift how we feel based upon what we think and the perspective that is. Yeah, that's in a nutshell. That's how we operate all day, every day. And based upon of these experiences, of our perception and how these feelings are pleasurable, enjoyable, we tend to open up and it's more healing and beneficial and joyous. On the other hand, if they're more painful, we tend to shut down and experience more dis-ease versus being at ease. And most of us are aware that dis-ease, commonly called disease, eventually leads to death, which in and of itself isn't the end all to be all because we are immortal, period. And just for clarity, my portion is speaking on death as opposed to immortality. When looked at through optimal health, is that death is the unknowing or the unconscious transformation. You know, you're riding down the street and all of a sudden some car come and hit you, and you wake up not in this realm anymore. It was unexpected, That's what my person said is that, yeah, or an untimely death, as opposed to being aware, you see, that, with the relationship that when the so-called spirit leaves the body, that the consciousness is aware. That's the only distinction my person is with. Being conscious of that time when they say the spirit leaves the body and the body lays there, ashes, ashes, dust is dust. At the time the spirit will leave that body, my person is suggesting there's a way to be conscious of that. And if we're conscious and leave the body, we're conscious where we are afterwards, hence the immortality aspect. Not to get too far off into that, however, we're just speaking about the mind here. This all has a context and content as far as context as far as where is this mind and what to do with this information. Well, to find out what the mind is. Which leads us to the question, so where is your mind? And my person has identified its mind as its emotional body. In other words, its heart is as its mental body and its aura as its spiritual body. And the aura, generally speaking, is the collective energy field of our body. And it may be linked, our mind that is, may be linked, identified, or associated with our chakras, which generally speaking is a Sanskrit word for energy or will. Free will in the middle of a wheel, car wheel, time. Okay. Nonetheless, something more. What's up with these energy channels? Although we have energy channels from head to toe that are metaphysical in nature, similar to our blood channels, blood vessels can be synonymous from head to toe that are physical in nature. Generally, the term chakra is referring to one of the 7 major energy centers along the spine, starting at the base of the spine with the root chakra or the first chakra, and ending at the top of the head with the crown or the 7th chakra. And these 7 energy centers, called chakras, not only have a color association with the colors of the rainbow, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, which can be sometimes called ROYGBIV, they each vibrate at different sound frequencies and have a relationship with our organs, glands, emotions, and perceptions. And perspective. Perception's perspective. They gotta go together. Your perspective on your perception. Your thoughts on what you see, what you perceive in a sense. Right? So we kind of just, again, laying the foundation energetically, because everything is energy, metaphysically about this thing called the mind as to where it is located. And here's a basic image diagram of the chakras. Again, it's very basic, kind of blurry. However, the main thing, we want to just look at the colors, and they again give an idea, indication of where these chakras are located. The root chakra, having a general association. Again, this is from this information is very widely shared. Again, there are some systems and some modalities that have a different correlation as far as the purpose or intention of these chakras. However, the thing that is consistent throughout, like 99.99999% is their location and their colors. The location and the colors pretty much constant throughout. You know, there's a lot of overlap as far as their different functionings, and even and that's that. And so again, just to give a basic idea of the root chakra, the tailbone. As we sit down, we're sitting on our tailbone. You know, that's the base of our spine, our root chakra. General basic trust. Some may say, food, clothing, and shelter, the basic necessities of life. Above that, just below the navel, we have our second or sacral chakra, which has an identificational association with our sexuality and creativity. Above that, above our navel, below the indentation in our rib cage, is found our third energy center, the solar plexus, which generally have an association here. It says wisdom, yes, wisdom and power. We arrive at that. So the fourth energy center is at the heart, where the physical heart is located, and the physical heart in there, as well as the heart chakra, which have a correlation with love and healing. Throat chakra, is generally speaking, is at the base of the neck, above the collarbone, indentation around that area. And that is, generally speaking, our communication center. Some other things, again, it's just a basic association here. Third eye, most people see that third eye, that first eye, third eye, which generally have an association with our ability, awareness, insight, clarity, intuition, clairvoyance, things of that nature. And the crown chakra, just at the top of the head, yeah, has an indication or correlation with our spirituality. In essence, or another way of saying, at the crown, it would like to connect us, the so-called physical being, to the universe, to the nature around us, to the cosmos, to everything. Our connected, generally speaking. So it's an idea of the chakras. Now, as we get a little bit more up into this mind thing, and with that, let's just go back here and see what's happening. Okay, just wanted to check in. All right, and we're still moving on, just in case there were viewers with comments. While doing this share screen, it's kind of challenging to see that, so nonetheless, nonetheless, we're going to keep this thing flowing, and it will be archived or later perusal, checking out, if you will. All right, so back to the screen share. At least so my person can have an idea of what's being shared as well, with a good vision on what's happening. So our chakras also had a correlation with the 7 planetary bodies that can be seen with the naked eye, referring to the Sun, the Moon, Mars, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn. Yeah, there's so many correlations with these 7 energy centers, the 7 inner planets, which is also the names of 7 days of the week. For example, the Sun, Sunday, the Moon, Moon Day, Mars is Tuesday, Mercury, Wednesday, Venus is Friday, Jupiter is Thursday, and Saturn correlates with Saturday. Days of the week, planetary bodies, colors of the rainbow, and it goes on and on and on and on. Yes. So much on that it goes way back to antiquity, these associations. So much so that there is an ancient science called the Tree of Life that stems from Kemet, or ancient Egypt, commonly called the Kemetic Tree of Life. It is also used in Jewish culture, commonly called the Kabbalah. That may have one B in there. And sometimes it is spelled with a Q versus a K. So maybe a little typo there with that Kabbalah spelling. So, FYI, talking to the head and not the brain, as they say, if that's the case, moving forward. And so what my person has done, simply speaking, by combining the general awareness of our 7 chakras and the general awareness of the Kemetic Deities, my person has created a system to allow it to make practical use of this information. This is really where the rubber meets the road. Yes, it would be appropriate now just to maybe give a little insight for those who may not be as aware of my person's background. First, starting with why my person says my person. The same reason my hand picked this thing up. My hand did it. Sometimes my stomach may hurt. Sometimes my elbow. Sometimes my mind. My heart. There's an entity that is saying mine. And so my person is speaking. So this entity has a person. That's simple thing. Like my hand, my person. It is the unseen, the consciousness, the I and I, the spirit of God. You know, from God, you know, the spirit of God. So the spirit of God, that spirit is using this body. So from the spiritual perspective, my person is the vehicle the spirit uses to get around this plane, this dimension. And so it comes with the understanding again of just who I am. And so having an understanding of the Kemetic philosophy and putting into practice some 7 years ago in 1993, the awareness of not to die from Christianity, which we in the Bible, Enoch and Elijah, 2 prophets, they didn't die, they just were caught up, as they say, went with God. That began the process of on not dying, immortality, to consciously leave Earth, to be with God, to constantly be with God, the same way it is described in the Bible by 2 prophets. And so, from Christianity to various religions, to finally the Kemetic or ancient Egyptian, it gave a person a foundation of really connecting the dots. How most religions say the same thing. You know, as we are gods, greater things shall we do. We have a certain level of responsibility. And so with that, my person has created a system, and is sharing part of that system here today, so it's where it's mind. And with that system is called the Breath of Life Training, BOLT, Breath of Life Training, or BOLT, BOLT. And the Breath of Life Training meditation initiation system is the vehicle that my person has created that would allow it to, when we're done, to leave like Enoch and Elijah, just really to become one with God. So, that's a little disclaimer on this information, where it comes from, the studies of this information Kemetic, all right? So, back to the slides here, because it just helps keep the brother in line. Otherwise, it's easy to get all over the place. All right. And this is what the brother makes rule again. This is now straight my person's association, combining the deities and the Kemetic Tree of Life and a basic understanding of the chakras. It created this bolt. Here we go. The relationship between our first, second, and fifth chakras, commonly called our root, sacral, and throat. My person sees its emotional body and or the mind, that thing that allows us to do anything once we put it to task. In other words, those three chakras, the first, second, and fifth, the emotional body is the mind. The mind, emotional body, mind. Just to provide a little more insight to that, or how it works. Root chakra, for example, my person assigned these attributes with it. Emotions, memory, nurturing, and devotion. Generally, some of the characteristics of the deity are set in the Kemetic tradition, are set. Nonetheless, something more. If we just focus on one, it would be, say, emotion and or nurturing. Well, I mean, all of them are there. To give you an idea of how this works, as a baby, as a youth, as an infant, one of the things that it seems to be becoming more commonly known now, that love is part of our survival. It helps with our survival in a sense. In other words, we can have all the food, we're getting food, we have something to eat, we have a place to stay, clothes to wear, food, clothing, and shelter. However, if we're not being loved and nurtured, there's a chance that we will not have loving relationships, and then that can, the extreme of that probably be a life of crime or something like that, or emotional abuse, some things like that. So that's what that root chakra is all, entangled with things like that, emotions, how we feel at an early age, memory, things that we're programmed, we want to transfer. We just see things, we just absorb things, all with the root chakra, And again, my person saying this is part of our mental complex. Not the mental complex, but the emotional body, which is the mind. And we also have a second chakra called the Sacral. Some of the things that it's associated with is imagination, visualization, pleasure, creativity. Venus is the planet. So we're looking at here, that second chakra is, what do we imagine? How do we see things? What brings us joy? The second chakra, sacral, that's also a creativity, desire, creativity, pleasure. Well, pleasure, for example, that, that's a thin line between pleasure and lust, because that's where we get our sensuality, sexuality as well, And the top three, commonly speaking of, in this country, or generally speaking around the world now, maybe it would be food, drugs, and sex. Money, drugs, and sex. Money, drugs, sex, and food. Right? Anyway, that's like second chakra all day, that pleasure thing, And then we have the throat chakra. Some of the correlations with that, the thinking, belief, information, and communication. Throat chakra. And so basically, how my person put this together, for the deities, the throat chakra, my person attributes that to Seven, just an FYI. Also, the second chakra, my person's attributed that to head a root. Just a little FYI. And so, by working with these deities, these energy centers in this way, my person has begun to see clearly how whenever it has a thought, it's thinking something, based upon what it feels about this thinking, it could go and imagine, visualize something based upon that. And it could be beneficial or detrimental. But join, this is how that mind works, that emotional body, based upon those energy centers, how they work together. And it could be the imagination first, just daydream or you sit there, all of a sudden you start imagining some things. Then based on what the person imagines, you got these thoughts. You think about this and your feelings come, or you imagine it. It doesn't matter which comes first. It could be the feelings come first. All of a sudden these feelings come. I'm not feeling this way. then you may start thinking, well, could it be this, could it be that? And as the thinking comes, the imagination goes. Imagine it. Again, these three things work together so much so. This relationship, my person just put it together. This is the emotional body called the mind, and it has been working with that as such. And just to add a little bit more, information with the root chakra before starting to wind this thing on down here. Again, it can be kind of don't want to get too long. That's why we got some slides here. At the same time, it's a lot of information. It's kind of heavy. So we don't want to go too long with, a lot of maybe heavy stuff. Nonetheless, on the more root chakra, right? Just some other identified significators of the root chakra. One, the color is red. Again, ROYGBIV for chakra, red. The organ that is associated with is the kidney. There's an emotion associated with that root chakra in the kidneys as well. That is fear. Yes, the planet is the moon, and the day is Monday. And again, some of the things that, is tied in with that root chakra and the kidneys and fear and things is the emotions, memory, nurture, and devotion. Right? And so this chart is kind of a way to maybe look at one aspect of our mind. Say if we have a tendency that we know that we're more fearful, afraid, if we have kidney issues, those are two things that could be telltale signs. We're just emotional. We just move and the wind blows through us. Why the wind gotta blow so hard? Hey, why so hot? So cold? Why? Hey, they're part of us. However, if we're moved and we don't want to be moved, then that could be an indication of the, root chakra, some indication like that. So again, just sharing some indications of associations of the workings of the mind, as we now have an idea of where it is, which is energetic speaking, permeating within, kind of floating within chakras. So we have our sacral chakra next, sacral chakra. Again, the color is orange. The organ that is associated with the second sacral chakra would be the spleen. The emotion is worry. The day is Friday, and the planet is Venus. Again, visualization, sensuality, joy, pleasure, and imagination. For the sacral chakra, worry warts. People worry all the time. It's the second chakra tendency. And generally speaking, if we worry about something, it's challenging to be creative. So these things kind of go hand in hand. The spleen is the organ here. And as we just check out the last slide real quick, or next to the last slide probably, the throat chakra, color is blue. Lungs and thyroid are the organs and glands. Emotions is grief, sorrow. Today is Wednesday, planet is Mercury. Of course, again, there was communication, analyzation, information, beliefs, and thinking. Throat chakra, the third energy center, again, that's associated with our mind, our emotional body, from my perspective. And again, this is part of a system, so just to kind of share part of this chart that my person has been working with over the last 5, 6 years. And basically, the same information that was just shared. It is just with all the chakras here in a little diagram to kind of look at, and because of the metaphysical approach, my person looks at how to, work with these energy centers, talk to it in a sense. So, just use this type. At any rate, let's close this out and go back to the computer screen just to check in and see. So there was no one that participated live except for one, which is this device right here. Nonetheless, something more. If there's any questions, say, clarity that is needed, or if it was just enough to get started, like, well, damn it, how do you really integrate and get involved with this mind thing? So whatever the path may be, feel free to reach out for that. Close out this slide now. And again, yeah. So again, just in closing out, this is a reminder. The person has generally identified its mind as being synonymous with its emotional body. And again, the emotional body, my person see this, is one of the four bodies that makes up this one body, which is one body we commonly call our physical body. However, with close analysis, we may come to realize that there's a physical body. We also have an emotional body, a mental body, and a spiritual body. And again, from my person's experience and knowledge, it comes to the test that the emotional body, again, is synonymous with the mind, which is actually three energy centers working together in a sense. Which is the root chakra, the second chakra, and the throat chakra, coming together to form an energy field in which that root chakra deals with basically how we feel, how we feel about things. The second chakra deals with basically our imagination, visualization, how we imagine things to be. The throat chakra, generally speaking, the communication tell us about our beliefs or thinking. So how we think, what we think about, communication, beliefs, our visualization, how we see it going forward, what we're imagining the best, how we're imagining don't want that, do want that, don't want this to happen, want that to happen. Again, second chakra, and how we feel about these things, root chakra, they're all intertwined. So if there's any further questions on, again, that detailed lifestyle of how to make it happen, reach out and let's see. There may be a banner or something to make it easier. How about this? What do we have here? Easy enough. So on the website, right? Or 281, Jesse, phone number in case. 281 905 8556. 281 905 8556. All right, good. Thanks. Good.